Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about bracing up the chassis of the 350Z. So for those of you that may be like me, you might want to stiffen up the chassis of your vehicle. Now I have to admit the 350 or the Z33 platform is quite stiff already. The one way you can check is when you lift up one corner of the vehicle, the door opens and closes quite well. Not a lot of vehicles can do that. So today we are going to talk about some of the bracing and some of the reasons why you want to get it, besides just wanting better handling. For example, I like this lower tire brace over here because I actually have a bigger oil pan now, and I'm a little bit scared that if I drive over something, it's going to smash the oil pan because my new oil pan is not stamped steel, it's now cast aluminum, kind of brittle if something hits it. So one reason I want this is, one, I want to help tie the chassis a little bit better, and it does feel a little bit better. It's not like a huge difference, but everything does help. There is a reason why from factory they put this in, even though a lot of people say you take this out, you'll notice a huge difference, but little changes make one big effect. What I'm hoping is also, if the odd chance, if I drive over something, it kind of acts like a skid plate. I really doubt it, but it's just some extra metal underneath that oil pan just in case. It's not designed to protect the oil pan, but you never know. And, putting things like this on the vehicle always make me feel good. So for that reason alone, it's worth it. Every time I work on my car, before I put the axle stand over, you have to jack it up. It doesn't matter. Every time I jack it up from as far forward as I can, it always picks up the rear. This car isn't that long, but it's also very rigid. As you can see, the back wheel is off the ground. Axle stand, or our jack, is as far forward as we can on the pinch seam. Do not go under a vehicle with only a jack. I am going to be putting an axle stand under here, but I'm going to show you something really quick. So we have the whole left side on the air, very uneven, a lot of torsional stress put on the car of its own weight, but you can do this with a 350Z. Opens and closes the door, no problem. Very slow. Even the slightest bit I open it, no effort, closes the door. A lot of cars can't do that, and to me that's how you prove how rigid a car is torsionally, by jacking up like this and then trying to open and close the door, because some cars, they don't open at all. In the back, there's a huge strut tower brace which takes up most of your cargo space, basically making this hatchback very impractical. Now the reason why Nissan did this is because they wanted to keep the car true to the Z cars, and it had to be a hatchback, but they wanted the rigidity of a coupe. So the coupes have, like a G35, they have that big rear deck and everything. Like if you were to take this all apart, you can see the spots for the seats because they're on the same platform. But because we don't have a rear deck, we lose a lot of strength. So they put this piece in, which for me, because this is like my third vehicle, I don't need it. Like I don't need cargo space, so this thing just looks cool, and you don't really have much of a choice. So by having this piece in, we really keep the rear of the car very rigid. Now most bracing you're going to see on the car is pretty generic, but I did notice on the front you have to be careful. I made the mistake. I bought this one and it works fine with the factory oil pan, but it does not clear an aftermarket one properly, or if you run a spacer you might run into issues. So this sole function here, when I looked at it, it looked like it came down deeper, and it does clear my aftermarket oil pan. I left the original finish here for the first part of the video. I do plan to paint this because all my chassis parts are red, so we're going to paint this red too, just to make everything match. There, much better. We now have the front piece in, and it's hard to say. I'm pretty sure it's a placebo effect, but I will notice when I did take it out and I was driving without this piece, it felt different. I'm not saying it felt worse, but it did feel different. And it's hard to say if this actually really makes a big difference, because if you notice, this lower member is all steel. It's one piece. It's already pretty stout. So it's really hard to say, like, this is going to make a big difference. But you can see here is if you drive on something, it might hit here and hopefully hit this bar and hit the rest of the bars, as opposed to riding directly on it. So hopefully it provides some sort of protection. I know it's not designed to give protection, but I think it's better than having nothing here and having this lower pan exposed with just a plastic shroud covering it. So you see in the rear I use a Megan Racing one, and I noticed that a lot of the manufacturers, they all look the same for the most part. It just depends on the brand. I'm not sure if everyone's making their own or if there's one company making them and then everyone's putting their name on it. So we have the rear tie brace over here. This is already on a stout part, but another one that I don't have yet, I haven't decided if I'm going to get it because you do lose a little bit of clearance. They look kind of weird, is the brace that goes from that end over there in front, because it's like a double A-arm, but not. It's kind of weird how they have it set up, because a lot of vehicles will have it connected. Well, on the 350 they have separate components that hold the spring and also help center the wheel. So you see there, I do not have the brace there. The new brace will have to go up and underneath the exhaust, so I do lose a little bit of clearance. That's why I haven't decided if I want to go there yet, but you can get two for the rear in these vehicles. For the middle, we went again with Megan Racing. Between the Soul Function and the Megan Racing one, they look identical. And the other reason why I got this mainly was to help protect some of the components under here, because it's kind of like a cage. So if there's some sort of obstacle and you drive over it, hopefully it stays on the brace and keeps it under the car as opposed to damaging the piping. You can also get items for the rear, so you can get roll cages for these, and also there are harness bars as well that actually tie the B-pillars into the chassis over here, so it would add some additional stiffness as well. Another item I plan to do in the future, I plan to take off this fender, and you can get these braces that go in here. I think it would be important in a vehicle that is a touring car that you might be doing some spirited driving in, because sometimes you come across areas that you might not be familiar with, and the road might elevate and come down, and depending on how fast you're going, you might catch light air on the car. Like, not completely lift the ground, but maybe you lift the suspension all the way down, like you droop all the way down, you're still making contact, and the car comes down. I believe having some bracing here will help with that, and it looks cool. Like, to me, like, I know how my vehicle is built. Once you put that piece on, no one's going to know it's there. But if you're going to be pushing your car hard on terrain that you're unfamiliar with, you might want to look into something that's bracing up this area. Now, with all these modifications, are you going to see a big difference in your handling? It will, but it won't be a huge impact. And the other thing is, if you're running a stock style suspension, you're probably not going to take a full advantage of having those chassis components on there, but it is obviously a good foundation and starting point to go off of. But if you're looking to take advantage of those chassis pieces, you have to upgrade your springs and your shocks, or at least the dampers alone, to help retune your suspension setup on how you want the car to drive. Well, hopefully guys, that gives you some chassis bracing options and some ideas. Now, I will admit again, this chassis from factory is pretty darn stiff compared to a lot of other vehicles out there. I really truly think these are really optional items. These are items that are obviously just for the driver, because if you're building a car, no one's ever going to see these things. But I am a big firm believer on making the foundation, the chassis of the vehicle, as stiff as possible within reason and still be serviceable. So you can see that not all front tower or all front tie braces are spec the same. So for those of you that are running spacers or bigger oil pans, you will probably want to look into the Soul Function one. As far as the middle and the rears go, seems like, just by looking at it, it looks like they're all manufactured. I can't verify if they're all manufactured in the same place, but they definitely look like they're all designed the same with different manufacturers. I have Megan Racing on my car, and then those other parts on the interior and on the fender that you'll see me do videos later on, and to really get this chassis dialed in. So as we build up the rest of the suspension around it, we know that this is all dialed in for what we want to do.